Where the children are?
Yeah, where are the children? It says you have 102 children here, and you got $2.66 million this year in funding, and $2.5 million last year. We're just wondering where the kids are.
Yeah.
Hello, we'd like to ask where the money's going. Look at that, shut us down. Where are the children at? No children inside of this daycare center. And look at this daycare center right here, no children inside of this daycare center. But between those buildings, over $2.6 million.
I've just seen a video of a 23 years old independent YouTuber or journalist covering this story of Somalis in Minnesota, the scamming, the fraud and everything. And I was like, wait a minute, is this really happening? You know, like, is this happening in where you have been given assimilation? Like Somalis, if this what I'm seeing is reality, then it is bad. In Swahili we say ni mbaya.
Here in Minnesota, massive fraud is taking place within the government and the Somali population. Here, this building alone, Quality Learning Center, is a daycare, yet they spelled learning wrong and they said leering. This daycare alone in 2025 has received $1.9 million from the government. And the strange things about these childcare centers is there's no one here right now. It's midday on a weekday. And if you were to try to go inside, it's completely closed and the windows are all blacked out. No one's working, midday. Children should be in here. And this place is licensed for 99 children. And this is the outside. There's no windows, no nothing. And like I said, they literally spelt the word wrong on their sign. This is open and blatant fraud taking place here inside of Minnesota. The government is complicit with this, and this is just one of the hundreds of child daycare centers here inside of Minneapolis being ran by the Somali population. It's sad that it's happening here in Minnesota, and it stinks that it's happening and it's being labeled on the Somali population. However, that's just the facts of what's happening here inside of Minnesota. $1.9 million for this daycare center that can't even spell learning right.
This journalist called Nick Shelley released a viral investigation alleging fraud and misuse of public funds in Minnesota. Here there is no things about race. Let's not talk about race here first. Let's tackle this issue of our African migrants, you know, because the key points from the reporting is that some daycare centers and non-profit were allegedly receiving large sums of government money while appearing inactive, improperly run, and even others are non-existent. Now, one thing I'm seeing here is Somalis, immigrants, or Somalis, some, not all, few Somalis caught up in a mixture of fraud and scamming scandals. Number two is, how can government give money to these institutions without approving first that they are? Here back in Kenya, when some things like that happen, we usually say the government is eating with that institution because the government knows very well where this institution is, if it's existing, how much children they have, if it's a school or a hospital and everything. So even here in Kenya, we have these scandals where you get there is a non-existent school. You know, there's a school with teachers receiving salary every month, but that school is not existing, and those teachers are not existing, but people are being paid and those people are not being seen. It's happening. So in one way or the other, the government knows what's happening. Now, in that reporting too, we have several cases highlighted that were located in areas with large Somali population, which drew public attention and controversy. Now, again, the video did not accuse all Somalis, but focused on specific organizations and individuals. So for all who haven't seen that video, just go search Nick Shelley. For me, I want to play all video here, just reacting and commenting and just a piece of the video. But it is something we need to talk about. Something we need to talk about, because this means to Somalis, especially living in Minnesota, that even when, you know, the entire Somali communities can face backlash with with all this small group that are doing all these scamming things. So this is unfair to other Somalis. This is unfair to other Somalis. Now, another thing, Somalis must expect or will expect tighter audits, more paperwork and delays, harder access to funding for legitimate Somalis non-profit. So again, it's a tragedy to those honesty Somalians. You get me? Now, let's talk about this. But before I dip into my commentary, before I lay down my reaction here, I want you to watch these clips here, and then we come back with more commentary.
I'd like to ask where the money's going. What do you guys think about the fraud that's taking place here in Minnesota?
I don't think anybody is enabling fraud to happen.
Hold Governor Walz accountable for this.
What was this money spent on? 1.26 million. What was that money spent on? There aren't any kids.
Answer the question. Are there children? There's no children inside this building. Potentially the largest fraud scandal in U.S. history is taking place in Minnesota, as literally billions of dollars have been funneled through Somali-ran fraudulent businesses. So much fraud, it could actually almost replace the entire GDP of Somalia.
Are we even surprised at this point? And how has this been going on for this long? Tim Walz, Ilan Omar, and many in the Somalian community in Minnesota have some explaining to do. These daycares with no children in them, these healthcare buildings with no patients in them, how do empty buildings get approval? And how do fake numbers get paid out? And credit to Nick Shirley for doing the legwork. He worked with a local named David in Minnesota who's been tracking this information for years. And sadly, this older gentleman who's been doing this research for his community has gotten attacked by Somalians for just asking simple questions. Totally valid questions to ask, mind you. Where are all these children in the daycares? Where are the patients in the healthcare buildings? So upon investigating, Nick and David accumulated an amount of over $100 million potentially in fraud by these Somalian people. And Nick and David emphasize Somalians because they are literally in the label of ownership under these licensed buildings. Check out the video under Nick Shirley's most recent video on YouTube. It'll be interesting to see how this unravels because I know Tim Walz, Ilan Omar, and so many Somalians will just dismiss this and throw it under the rug when, mind you, one of the biggest frauds in US history, through Somalians, mind you, in America. But yeah, people will just slap on the label of racist if anyone draws attention to it.
So how does everybody feel about the Somali immigrants who have reportedly set up like fake medical companies and are defrauding the United States government of insane amounts of tax money? Apparently it's so bad that the FBI has made a statement stating that the Somali tax fraud schemes and government schemes are at a level that they could have never anticipated. And they're basically, from what it sounds like, devoting an entire fucking task force just to this bullshit, okay? So what does this teach us and what does this show us? It shows us that people who come from these broken down hellhole countries do not come here to help America. They come here to rob America and destroy America. If they're not trying to spread Islam and bump Islamic prayers through the loudspeakers, okay, then what they're trying to do is rob hardworking Americans of their money. So when you ask me the question of, do I support open borders? Absolutely not. Close them, completely close them. If you want to come to America, you got to show us why you're worthy. And you being worthy means you're bringing something here. You're either paying us money, a big sum of it, or you're bringing business over here, or you're doing something that's going to benefit the United States. You're not just going to come here because you got an American dream. That dream's not for you. It's for American citizens. You don't get that fucking dream.
Bro, I'm from Columbus, Ohio. I knew about the Somali shit 20 years ago. I had my son 20 years ago. I went to go get Section 8. Drove down to the Section 8 office in Columbus, Ohio, and guess who the fuck I seen? All Somalis in the parking lot. They was there for 8 hours already. Had tents and shit, vans. They had fucking tents. They had their vans parked in the parking lot and made tents, nigga. It's first come, first serve when you go to get help from the government, when you need aid, when you need financial aid. First come, first serve. You gotta wait behind a fucking 100 Somalians, nigga, to get... I'm American, bitch. I gotta wait behind 100 Somalians to even get help. Then when you wait after all these niggas, they be like, oh yeah, we don't got no more room left. We only had 80 spots. Yeah, 100 Somalians got all the motherfucking Section 8, nigga. I knew about this 20 years ago. I never did get the Section 8, and the government don't give a fuck. The federal government don't care. They complicit. They corrupt.
Guys, this 23-year-old journalist just exposed more fraud than any mainstream media outlet ever could. Shirley just went to Minnesota, and what he discovered is rocking the country. And guess what? MSNBC and CNN and those outlets, they're not reporting it. I suggest you go watch the video, but here are the cliff notes. For 30 years, Democrats have kept over 150,000 Somali nationals parked in temporary protected status, all while a Minnesota-based Somali social services laundering machine allegedly stole up to $9 billion worth of federal and state programs. And they funneled huge chunks of that stolen money out in remittances, basically sending suitcases full of cash back to Somalia, and some of that American taxpayer money ended up in the hands of terrorists. Shirley goes to Minnesota to expose how they're laundering the money, and it's insane. With the help of this concerned citizen, they go door to door of child daycares, each daycare receiving a couple $1 million each. And at every single daycare they stopped at, the windows and doors were blacked out, there were no cars parked in the lots, and there was not a child in sight. Yet every year, these centers are receiving over $1 million a pop, and when the owners were confronted, the Somalis shut Nick and his helper down. This is money laundering. They counted 20 million in fraud just in the first couple hours. And then they went to the Somali-run healthcare centers. One center, for instance, had 14 different healthcare companies in one building. In another building, there were 22 different home care providers. So after being escorted out by police for harassing these Somali employees of these made-up companies, Nick noted that the fraud estimate was at $100 million. That's your hard-earned taxpayer dollars being absolutely wasted. The helper says that Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, burned through $24 billion federal dollars in 2 years. The state is now in a $6 billion deficit. That's almost entirely because of all the fraud. So just so we're clear, billions of taxpayer dollars are being funneled into Minnesota through federal and state welfare and social programs. Federal dollars just means money taken in by Washington through taxes and then spent back out through federal programs and grants. So it's not just Minnesotans' tax dollars being wasted. All of us pay into that federal pot. So your money, you in Florida or Texas, your money could be sent to a Minnesotan daycare that doesn't exist, and then that money ends up in the hands of Somali scammers so that they can afford luxury cars, homes, and accessories. And the Somali community is so tight-knit that they can keep all of this hush-hush. It's a secret operation that's been going on for 30 years, and people are so afraid of being called racist that they don't speak out. And the governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, has overseen all of this, and he's guilty of two things: failing to report the misuse of public funds and the misconduct of a public employee. Twin Cities is ground zero for fraud. It is probably worse than anywhere else in the country. So, insane stuff. Great job, Nick. Everyone go follow his channel, share his stuff. Help expose this abysmal fraud. Let's get Tim Walz fired and put these criminals behind bars. No more!
The Minnesota Somalis are in deep, deep trouble, and it keeps getting worse day by day. So Nick Shirley took it upon himself to go down there.
2 child daycare centers. We have the Minnesota Child Care Center, and we also have Nuna between the 2.66 million. Hello.
Hi.
Yes, we would like to know.
Well, it says we're trying to figure out 102 children. Is that for this facility? It's from the state of Minnesota website. It says you have 102 children here in your child care.
Which child care, Minnesota?
Minnesota child care right here. It's from the state of Minnesota's website. We're just wondering where the children are.
Where the children are?
Where are the children? It says you have 102 children here, and you got $2.66 million this year in funding, and $2.5 million last year. We're just wondering where the kids are.
Who are you?
My name's
Shirley.
and we are from ourselves. Hello, we'd like to ask, where's the money go? Look at that. Shut us down. Where are the children at? No children inside this daycare center?
To Minnesota, check out the daycare centers who are getting millions and millions of dollars monthly and yearly because they claim that they're taking care of hundreds of children. So he went down there, right? Knocked on the doors. Where were the kids? Nowhere to be found. All he found was a bunch of Somali men and a bunch of Somali women wrapped the fuck up like mummies. They didn't have any answers to any questions pertaining where are the kids. The money is to fund the kids. So Nick Shirley is walking into these buildings, right? He's walking around. There's no kids, right? Not one. Run into one Somali man, ask him some questions. He don't got no questions. He don't got no answers to any questions. Sees another person, right? Ask them questions. They have no answers. Where the kids at? Are there any kids here today? No, there ain't no fucking kids here today because it was all fraud. It's on video. I don't want to hear a Somali saying, look at Black Americans again attacking us. They're hating on us. We're so much better and blah. You're not anything. You guys are scammers. That's what it's looking like.
What this Nick Shirley video from Minnesota has done is it has gone viral, as set up the ultimate test. And that test is a test of intelligence and understanding. Now, after looking at all the proof of fraud, all the irrevocable evidence, after all of the documentation and all of the in your face, this is what is actually happening in real time, are you still willing to vote Democrat? Because this is what is guaranteed. There is no possible way that any politician, I don't care how skilled you are, can gaslight your way out of this one. You can't do it. It's impossible. So this is the ultimate test. Are you still willing to vote Democrat?
Massive fraud in the state of Minnesota, especially in Minneapolis. This daycare right here, ran by Somalians, has taken in from the Minnesota government $1.1 million. This daycare says it can hold up to 40 children. I went up to the door. The door is locked, and as you can see, the windows are blacked out. I can't hear any children inside this daycare. It's midday right now. You'd think there'd be children in there playing, being taught, but no one is in there. This daycare, within 2 years, has taken in over $2 million. The Somalians are robbing the taxpayers in Minnesota blind. This is just one daycare located in Minneapolis that are doing exactly the same thing. We've went into daycare after daycare. All the doors are locked, all the windows are blocked out, and they're raking in millions upon millions of dollars. This Tim Walz's Minnesota is allowing this to go on. It's super easy to find fraud. All you need to do is go up to a door, try to open it. It's closed and there's no children. So you know these daycares, they're not full, but yet they're taking in millions of dollars every year. Let me know your thoughts on this one.
Grand Rising family, welcome back. Now it's my time to roll in. You have seen the videos, you have seen reactions. Tell me what you think on the comment section about this issue, okay? But you know what happened. You have seen what happened, and I'll say this. This is where history repeats itself, because there is a dangerous shift that is going to happen from individual crime to ethic blame. You know, when fraud happens in corporate America, it's called white collar crime. When fraud happens in Wall Street, it was called miscalculation. You know, when fraud happens in defense contractors, it is called cost overruns. But when fraud happens near the black migrant community, it becomes a cultural problem. Okay, it becomes a community issue. It becomes a reason to cut everyone off, and that is unspoken reality Somalis are facing right now. That's unspoken reality Somalis are facing right now. Okay, now what will happen? I think there will be increased surveillance and scrutiny, or scrutiny. Somali-run organization will now face more audits. You know, they'll now face longer approval times and higher suspicion threshold, even the honest ones. So integrity will not protect you from collective suspicions. Mainstream media, on the other hand, they will harden this story. We know that. You know, they will harden this story. Mainstream outlets will not lead with oversight failure by the state, but they will lead with Somali-linked fraud cases. What's matter? Headlines matter. You know how they do that. Young Somali Americans too, they will be questioned more. They will be trusted less. They will be forced to defend a scandal they have nothing to do with. And this is how invisible punishment works. So there's going to be an invisible punishment to Somalis. You know what I mean? So a part that is uncomfortable but necessary is that protecting a community does not mean defending wrongdoers. Even if I want to protect Somalis, does not mean I will defend the fraudsters, you know, or staying silent. I won't stay silent, or attacking anyone who asks a question. A community that cannot self-correct becomes vulnerable to internal punishment. And yes, the truth they don't want to say out loud. Exploiting aid meant for children and families is not resistance. It is betrayal. Okay? First of the community, and again betrayal for the future. So Silence helps scammers, but truth protects generations. Truth protects the whole society, the all African immigrants, the all black people. Okay? So let's not allow the narrative to be hijacked. The real scandal is weak oversight, rubber stamp approval, poor verification system. And if the system was strong, then that fraud will not be there. That shows how there is a fracture in the American system. That shows how there is a cracks in the American system. You know, if there is a strong system, communities will not be blamed. If there is strong system, journalists will need to expose in it on YouTube or everywhere else. So this is a state failure. For me, personally, I started by saying that it's a state failure, it's not a Somali failure. Frauds are everywhere. Americans have fraud, white frauds. We have black frauds. We have African frauds. Frauds is everywhere. Scammers are everywhere. You know what I mean? The government itself, politics is a scam. The religion itself is a scam. You know what I mean? Okay? And once again here, black immigrants and black Americans will be pitted against each other. Believe me. Because, make no mistake, this story will be used to push anti-migrant bill. That story will be used to cut social programs, to increase policing of non-profits, to divide black communities against each other. Believe me. Because the system will try to escape accountability. So what will they do? Fight against each other. Okay? And this moment is not just to end Somali community story in America, but it is a test. It's a test for leadership. It's a test for integrity. It's a test for unity. It's a test for political awareness. So if it is mishandled, the moment becomes a weapon used against questions or against generations. If handled with wisdom, it becomes a turning point where the community proves that it will not allow few individuals to destroy the future of many. Okay? Now, let me tell you something. Most people don't want it to become on public, you know, or to understand about America. Facts don't travel fast. Facts does not travel fast. But they travel with agenda. So the moment that investigation is goes viral, you know, it left the hand of journalism and entered the hand of what? Political operative, anti-migrant influencers, bad faith commentators, and culture war profiters. And suddenly the story stopped being about oversight failure and become about those people. This is how truth gets distorted. This is how truth gets distorted. Now, here's how it works. Just pay attention how this works. There's a legitimate expose drops. In this case, for example, reporting by Nick Shelley highlights allegedly fraud tied to specific organizations. Number 2, there's a selective clipping. Out of context screenshots, thumbnails that emphasize ethnicity over evidence. A lot of things will be out here. A logarithm application. Outrage travel faster than nuance. There is a collective blame. Suddenly Somalis are scammers, or refugees are frauds, or non-profit are criminals. So a lot of things will come, and this process has nothing to do with justice. When that white conservative unalived Charlie Kirk, they didn't say white people are killed, are unaliving people. They didn't paint all white people as murderers. No. But when on this one, the media will carry it in a different way. Okay? And this is dangerous to Somalis in America, because Somali occupy a very specific position in American society. Black, Muslim, immigrant, highly visible in one geographic area. And that combination make the community easy to target. That combination make it easy to stereotype, easy to scapegoat. And this is not just accidental. Allow me to tell you, History can prove that black communities have seen these patterns repeatedly. In the 1970s, to be precise, black activists were framed as criminals. In the 1990s, the welfare queen myth was used to destroy social safety nets. In 1990s, crime narrative justified mass incarceration. In 2000s, Muslims were collectively suspected after 9/11. And today, aid fraud is being used to justify cutting programs and tightening immigration. I'm just talking about from my perspective. You know what I mean? Different decades, same playbook. Okay? And here's the trap many communities fall into. They respond emotionally instead of strategically. They say this is racist, you know, they are targeting us. And while that may be true, but it's not enough. Because all system doesn't respond to feelings. Right, too silent. All system doesn't respond to feelings. It responds to structure, law, and power. Now, being clear, I will highlight, you know, what I think, what to do right now, and what not to do right now. As a Somali, do not deny wrongdoers. Do not deny wrongdoings where evidence exists. Do not attack journalists for asking questions. Do not turn scammers into community heroes. Do not silence whistleblowers. Those reactions confirm negative narrative instead of dismantling them. So, for our smart communities, what do we need to do in a moment like this? My Somalis brothers and sisters, you're my brothers. Let's separate criminals from the collective. Let's demand transparency internally. Let's cooperate with lawful investigation. You know, let's control their own messaging. Elevate ethical leaderships. You know what I mean? And this is how Jewish communities, Asian communities, you know, and corporate institutions protect themselves. They don't protect criminals, but they protect the future. Okay? Now, here's the uncomfortable truth. The largest fraud in America to ever happen was committed by banks, was committed by corporations, by defense contractors, by pharmaceutical companies. And yet no one says white people are scammers. Yet no one says, or no one cut funding to white communities. No one blames white children. Why? Because power protects itself. Marginalized communities must learn to do the same ethically. Okay? You know what I mean? Now, let's talk about the ones no one is protecting. The youths. The Somali youths. Because in one way or the other, young Somali youths will now have to walk into schools, to walk into universities, job interviews, carrying a stigma that they didn't create, that they are scammers. And that is psychological burden in real life. It is psychological burden. It shapes the future too. Okay? So the leadership, like in Iran, they were talking on social media, they have something to do. Real leadership does not just shout, hey, Trump this, Trump that. A real leadership, it does not posture, does not deflect. Real leadership calls community meetings, establishes ethic boards, demands financial transparency, work with regulators. You cannot run away from the criminals in your own society, from the crimes in your own backyard. Okay? If you exploited funds meant for families, meant for children, meant for refugees, meant for the vulnerable, you didn't just steal money, you stole trust. You stole, endangered, or you endangered an entire community future. History will not defend you, and neither should it. Even the people should not defend you. Okay? Let me be clear to the haters who are watching this video. I know you don't care about the fraud. You care about permission to hate. Okay? So, if this were really about integrity, you'll demand corporate accountability or question military budgets. You'll scrutinize billion-dollar bailouts. But you don't. So don't pretend this is about justice. I've seen some people trying to create videos like, but that's reality. But this is bad. It's going to be bad to Somalis. And if this expose is really true, then we have to work better than that. Tell me what you think on the comment section. Until next episode, peace out.